Hi folks, Toad here with Visordown.com and welcome to the review of our Triumph Bonneville Speedmaster. So this is the 2021 edition of the Speedmaster. It's been around for a few years now and hasn't really had much done to it. Euro 5 came along and Triumph have slightly updated it, new Euro 5 engine, obviously that's the big thing that they're trying to get through. They've also updated the styling, some new detailing, increased the level of comfort and given it some new colour options, of which I think this red with all of that chrome on it is absolutely stunning. So yeah, let's have a little look at the bike in a bit more detail. So this comes in at £12,200, so it is there or thereabouts the sort of the same price as the current generation Bobber Black. And we have got the 1200cc parallel twin Bonneville engine in this. Now the actual motor that's fitted to it is the high torque motor, so it's not the same engine that the Thruxton R gets. That's the high power motor, which is, I don't want to say peakier, but the power arrives later and there is a bit more power and it's got different cams and stuff. That's not what this engine is. It is the high torque engine. It's just delivered and it is designed just to give a really luxurious low down delivery, which it absolutely does. So we're going to go through the bike in detail. So first and foremost, the engine, updated for this year, Euro 5. It's pushing out around 76 bhp, which doesn't sound groundbreaking. It's not a super powerful bike. It has got loads of torque as well, 78 pound-foot of torque at pulls really cleanly from sort of 1200 1300 rpm right the way through. Triumph seems to be able to get a parallel twin cylinder engine to work better than anybody else, especially of this sort of capacity, where they can get the performance, they can get the economy, they can get the emissions, but more importantly than that for me is they can get the engine character, and that is one thing that this engine has got in spades in whatever bike it's in. Thruxton, you know, T120, Bobber, Speedmaster, they've all got such a wicked character to them. It's a really lovely little engine, and don't let the numbers trick you and the look and the style of the engine to fool you. It does get down the road really ridiculously quick enough that you can be chirping the traction control and having that turning on in, you know, first, second and sometimes third gear if you're really hammering it on. The tank on it isn't huge, so we've got a 12 litre fuel tank on there. I mean, it's not a very thirsty bike. I've been riding it fairly hard and I think I've averaged around about sort of 60 mpg. You're not going to get huge miles from the tank because it is only 13 litres, but you aren't going to be using much petrol if you are going to be using it and riding it as it's designed to be ridden, as a sort of a laid back, sort of chilled out cruiser. At 70 miles an hour you'll be doing just over 3,000 rpm. So the motor's really lazy at that sort of speed and the gears are set perfectly so that you're just not working the motor at all. And it's just if you're looking for laid back cruising, it is absolutely perfect. And because it hasn't got the kind of cruiser ergonomics of some other bikes, when you do get on a twisty and you do want to have some fun, you can chuck it around and it can hustle, although it's not quite becoming of a bike of this style. I want to talk about the handling as well. So the suspension and the brakes on this are basically the same as the current generation Bobber Black. The rear spring has been adjusted, obviously, because this has got the pillion seat and the Bobber Black doesn't, so it's been adjusted with a slightly stiffer spring. That has compromised the ride quality a little bit. It's not as jarring as I've read some people say that it is. I think it's still actually all right. The front forks are really good, and the brakes are 2-piston Brembo calipers, so there could be more power there. But you know, there's enough. The ABS works well. It doesn't bleed all the pressure out the lever when you call on it, although it is a 2-channel system. It's not a fancy cornering ABS system as is found on some other bikes. Obviously the styling of the bike with the feet forward rider controls down there, ground clearance is a little bit of an issue. You've got massive hero blobs on the footrest at the front, and I think I have probably taken about 6 or 7 mil off those since I've had it, and I've only really been out on it a couple of times. As long as you remember that you have got that there and that it is going to be an issue if you start canting the thing over in corners too much, you can still have a good time on it. It is based on the Bobber Black, and that's a good handling bike, a really good handling bike for its styling. I mean, you chuck a few extra kilos on it and a stiffer rear spring, it's not really going to ruin that recipe too much. Just want to talk about the equipment of the Speedmaster. The styling of it says that it hasn't got anything there, but there's a couple of riding modes. You've got traction control, and you've also got the 2-channel ABS and cruise control, which is just a single button, one touch system, so you haven't got the ability to adjust the cruise control up or down. I mean, it's perfectly simple, perfectly easy to use. The dash is really pleasing thing to look at. You've got that massive sweeping speedo and then a small LCD cluster below it where you can cycle through the information that you need. The LCD gets a bit fussy, and sometimes you're trying to find whichever setting it is you want, whether it's your range or your revs or, you know, engine temperature, whatever. But it's really not a problem once you get your head around it. It's just I like the fact that they've stripped it back. I like the fact that it's kind of true to its retro style and its kind of classic origins, in that it hasn't got loads and loads of technology on it, because there's nothing worse that would ruin a bike like this than a big old fat TFT dash. Really, the devil is in the detail with the Speedmaster, and I always think, and I've said it for a long time, that I don't think anybody does details quite like Triumph do. The Speedmaster is a deceptively quick bike. You know, it doesn't look like it should get down the road as quickly and as well as it does. You've got good handling, you've got strong brakes, and you've got that fantastic engine which has got a beautiful mix of torque and power and character and delivery that just makes it an absolute joy to ride. So it may be a bit overshadowed by the other bikes in the Triumph range, like the T120, the Thruxton R, and the Bobber Black, and so on and so forth, but I don't think it's any less of a bike. The fact that you can take your missus on the back or your partner on the back of it is just brilliant, although when I did, my missus did complain that the pillion seat was a little bit hard and a little bit small. But hey, you can't please everybody. So there it is, probably the most classic of the Triumph range currently. I mean, you'd think that it was the T120 Bonneville that would be the most classic, but in my mind this is the bike that is the most authentic of all of them. It might not be the fastest, it might not be the best handling, but it is one of the most stylish bikes in the Triumph range. If you like what you see, get yourself down to a Triumph dealership. They have got demos available, the dealerships are open, the sun is shining for a minute or two, and don't forget to let us know what you think of it in the comments below. Thanks folks.